Video is a powerful tool, and it can be used to impact the world for good through helping businesses thrive, through helping major problems in our society come to life and be addressed and come to light, not come to life. And also just realizing that there are some really simple tools that you can utilize to do it successfully. Well, welcome back to another episode of Good Business, guys. I'm so honored to have Daniel Miller here on the show with us today. Now, Daniel is going to introduce himself because he's obviously got a lot to share today in the concept of storytelling. And man, Daniel, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And I'm joined by...
And James.
Yeah, my name's James. I'm looking forward to having this conversation about storytelling and film.
It'll be a good time.
Awesome. Okay, so we're just going to dive right on it because this is something that I truly love. I am so passionate about film and storytelling. It's why I got into this industry, and it's something that I could probably talk about for hours, and I know you could too. So Daniel, thank you for joining us. The first thing that I want to talk about is, according to ChatGPT's notes here, it says, the potency of film in conveying messages is undeniable. That's true. What is the purpose behind film, according to your experience? Like, why do we do films? And is it specifically in the context of business and communication? Is it something that should be used by churches and nonprofits and businesses and what have you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think film is probably the most powerful form that we have to tell a story. Obviously, we're in marketing, and so we make websites with great messaging, and so a lot of copywriting and that kind of stuff, and advertising. But being the video guy, if you will, at that company, I'm a little biased, but I do think that film is the best way to connect with our audience, especially in this sort of increasingally AI world where there's like Midjourney can create images at a prompt. Especially, thinking about businesses these days, your clients probably aren't going to find you via walking into your actual physical building. Usually they're going to find you through finding your website or finding you on social media. And because of this sort of AI world that we live in, I think there's going to be kind of this increasing need for authenticity. And I feel like having a video on your website where you're actually there on screen talking to your clients, telling them about your business, talking to your clients about their problem and how you can fix it, that kind of like lifts the veil from this sort of digitalized world. If I'm scrolling on social media, there's a lot of pictures on there that are like CGI enhanced or AI generated. Mm-hmm. And I think that's just further kind of removing people from that human connection. Yeah. And so having a video on your website or your social media that explains your vision, or if you're a nonprofit, you can talk about you can have like an awareness campaign or a donations campaign. And we've made videos like that before. I'd say it's so important to make that human connection. Yeah. And so we do that often through Storybrand. I'm sure, for your listeners and watchers, they've probably heard you talk about Storybrand a lot. And so there's Storybrand is this amazing framework that helps you tell a story and helps you message your story to your potential clients in a way that they'll engage with. And so we use that framework all the time. It's a character who has a problem that's standing in their way of getting what they want. Then they meet a guide who calls them to action. Oh, I'm messing that up. Is that right? A guide.
A guy or a guide.
Yeah, a guy or a guide.
Yeah, there's a guy.
A guy or girl. A guide that calls them to action that leads to either success or failure. Yeah. This is kind of the storyline of every like major movie book out there. And for editing purposes, because I do a lot of editing, I like to simplify it into the 3-act structure, which we'll probably talk about in this podcast.
Oh yeah.
And that's this is kind of a universal concept for all storytellers. It's like there's Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. or a conflict, a journey, and a resolution. And so that's, I think video is the best way to share that message, because this is basically it's the Storybrand message framework in a nutshell, and sort of simplify it into more textbook narrative terms, if you will. But that's I think that's the video is the best way to share that, because, you know, in your act one, instead of saying, like, if you're a mattress company, you don't say like, hi, we're XYZ mattress company. We sell the king, we sell the queen, we sell the twin. This is how much they cost.
Yeah.
Now buy now. Like, there's no story involved in that. I don't, and especially
it's purely transactional at that point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's just informational, and there's no connection with the person watching this ad or whatever it is. But if you come in and use the Storybrand framework, where you say, hi, at XYZ marketing, or not marketing, mattress company, we know that you want a good 8 hours of sleep every night. But the problem is that, you know, most mattresses on the market are either low quality or they're too expensive. Well, now that's act one. You've introduced the problem. And then you can say in your the journey section, act two, you can introduce yourself. That's why at XYZ Mattress Company, we've engineered this like organic memory foam mattress or whatever. And then you can talk about all your awards that you've won, all these things that build up empathy and authority. And then you move to act three, and this is why I feel like video is one of the best ways to share this, because you can bring in your happy, satisfied customers, and they can say on your video, like, man, ever since I switched to this mattress, we actually, I bring this up, I guess, because we had a company that we worked with a few years ago that we made a film for them, and they were like it was like a kids.
Yeah, mattresses for kids.
Mattresses for kids.
They also did, I actually got one. I was sold.
Oh yeah,
that's right. That's right.
Yeah, we have two.
See, it works. Marketing works. Video works.
Yeah.
But one of my favorite parts in that is that success piece was act three, where we had one of their happy customers come in and say, you know, ever since we switched to this mattress, you know, my kids slept 9 hours straight that first night, and consistently has done that. And she was like, and ever since, you know, she's gotten more sleep, I've gotten more sleep. And she like had this big smile on her face.
I'll never forget the relief that I saw on her face when she was talking. And as a dad myself, like, when your kid sleeps through the night, that is gold. I mean, it's just like,
it was a very cathartic experience.
Yeah, it truly was. It truly was. I love that.
Yeah, it got me. So, you know, it's interesting when you talk about this, Daniel, is how many businesses don't do this.
Yeah.
I mean, just think about all the commercials and all of the advertisement that goes to people, and it's just like,
Save
we
your
have a
money
king,
today.
we have a queen, you know, here's the price, come down now. And it's like, I don't care. Like, you know, and I'm not going to go and buy your mattress from you because you haven't gotten me into a story. And when you think about the impact of video, you know, people, a research came out 2 years ago, said that people under the age of 30 go to YouTube first to search for, you know, those types of inquiries. And you're thinking, okay, so when they do that, and whenever the search results show up on YouTube, you know, for whatever they're searching for, is your video the best video of all the videos that are on there? You know, and making sure you're telling the best story so that those customers will see your product and then click the little buy now button at the end and actually buy that mattress.
Yeah, it's true. It's like, it's social media. It's social media. It's your website. I was just talking to our awesome gaffer, Barry, before this, and we were talking about social media, and the point of like having that is so that people will find you and because
trust
that's
you.
where, and trust you. That's where all the kids are these days. So.
yeah, absolutely.
Oh no, that's great. That's great. So one of the things you talk a lot about, or just talked a lot about, is just kind of that mindset going into the film process of, hey, this is what should be included in a video. When you think about a new project, obviously it's so important to make sure that it's a good product. If it's a bad product, it's really hard to sell. It's really, really hard to sell.
It has to be a good product.
It has to be a good one.
Love it.
I don't know if you can put like some sort of jingle that pops up every time we say good. I don't know, but it's so important to have the mindset down of like, hey, there's a purpose behind this video, and that purpose is to convince the end user to respond. And I love it if you could kind of elaborate maybe on something that's a little bit more purpose driven. I know we've done a lot of work for churches and nonprofits, and I think the gravity and the weight of that project feels probably a little bit higher than most when you're thinking about, hey, look, this video could change people's lives. And that kind of brings in the next conversation about our feature film, A Better Way. That truly was a film that changed people's lives. I mean, we've heard testimonies of people's literally they would have died had they not seen A Better Way, which is just crazy to think that film has that capacity to save lives. But I'd love it if you could just kind of walk us through what was A Better Way, what was the journey there.
Yeah, well, I think first, before I answer that, I'd love to say that, like, for nonprofits and some of these more purpose-driven projects, I think there's such a powerful like ability that those sort of projects have to like make a video that has that sort of impact. Because you know, when we're talking about Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, Act 1 is the problem. You know, it's one thing to say, hey, you might get a few more hours of sleep every night because you might be getting 5 or 6. Like, that's a problem. That's a problem. But then you can talk about like nonprofits, and they have a very potent problem usually. Like churches and nonprofits, they have they're usually combating some really major things like world hunger or you know, orphanages all over like Haiti or wherever. Talking about how, like, we believe that every orphan in Haiti deserves to be placed in a solid home. Like, now that's a real problem, or that's a real thing that everybody's going to be like, oh wow, oh my gosh, you're right. And so you're right. As far as A Better Way is concerned, like, there is sort of a gravity, I think, in terms of how to tell that story and how to not do it a disservice in the creation process.
Can you give us an overview of what A Better Way
is?
Yes,
thank you.
No, that's good. That's good. I just probably no one's seen this. Who's watching this video?
No, that's
right
good.
Now, so,
I lost my
good.
train of thought.
So. No, it's good. It's good.
So A Better Way was a documentary that we produced about, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago.
2018 to 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't want to give it away, but well, I'll tell you what. I'll introduce it by saying this. So Clay, you had a meeting with me and one of our editors, Scott, at the time. Scott and Michael, one of the most brilliant editors I know of. And so we sat down and we talked about, I think you had already gone out and filmed like hours and hours of footage all over the country. It's a health documentary, and so a lot of health professionals. And so you sat down and we sort of tracked out the 3-act structure of what A Better Way would be. And so I still have the notes of it. You had Act 1 is supposed to be health crisis. And if you watch the film, it'll show like kind of a little montage at the beginning where we show a lot of the statistics and things like that say that we do have a health crisis in America. And then Act 2 is conspiracy. That's where we kind of, you know, the plot thickens and our main character kind of uncovers some of the things that are perpetuating this health crisis in America. And then Act 3, you said you wanted that to be hope. And that's where we introduced the solution, which I won't mention. You have to go watch it to find out.
Streaming on Apple TV, Amazon Prime.
Cool.
Go check
Wherever
it out.
it is,
go check it out. Yeah.
So that was super helpful. I think knowing that that's where we're going. That's the sort of, you know, everything from that point needs to flow into that 3-act structure for A Better Way. So yeah, to answer your question as far as what it is, it's a health documentary. That
what problem were you bringing up in that? If we're talking about the problem, that inciting incident, what was the problem that you really honed in on in the edit?
That was interesting because I think we had multiple problems technically. What we had to do, so we were addressing, I think, the opioid epidemic specifically, but then we had to have that play into our main character's journey, and the inciting incident was the fact that his mom had died at an early age, taking, was it 23 or 24 or 25 prescription medications, and just nothing was really working. And so that sort of prompted his journey into what A Better Way now is. And so
did you enjoy the process, or was it just, I mean, were you pulling your hair out half the time? I mean, what was that like?
Well, there was some hair pulling out a little bit. I have this.
You had this terrible director. I mean, he kept on changing his mind on everything. I don't know what was his issue.
Well, I have this really specific memory of working all night in the office on the edit, because I think the premiere was that day or something like that. And I just finished this major animation export. I forget what I was doing. And it was like probably 6 a.m. And so I was like, you know what, I gotta work again in 2 hours. So I get 2 of our swivel chairs, and I like try to curl my whole body up into these swivel chairs to get a couple hours of shut eye or whatever. It probably was like 7:30 maybe. And as soon as I did that, the lights in the hallway popped on because it was morning. And then one of our editors, Bobby, started walking in and he sees me from down the hall and he just smiles and shakes his head at me. Anyway, it was hilarious. So,
but that's the life of an editor, though. I mean, when you're working on such tough deadlines, and I mean, that was tough. It was tough.
It was fun, though.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. I think that after we had that meeting, I think I came in and did some, I mean, I don't even know what you call the task, basically labeling the audio. I would listen through all the interviews and sort of add text to them. And now AI can do this all for us. But I basically just add text descriptions of what this segment of this interview is about. And I think I did that for most of the interviews that we shot. And then I didn't touch the film for about a year. And then Scott came in, and I think your words were he like carved it out of the mountain.
Yeah.
He did all the kind of the hard work, and I got to do more of the fun work. But he did the hard work of like pulling like all these, I don't know, 200 plus hours.
It was crazy amount of hours of interviews for sure.
So he pulled it out and he started putting it into a timeline based on that 3-act structure.
I think the first cut was like 7 hours long or something crazy like
probably,
that.
Yeah. I think so. And then I came in maybe a year later and kind of helped with, basically what helped me is as we were getting closer to the final draft and the release date, I took a sheet of notebook paper, and I watched through the film, and I basically wrote out all the beats of the story as they were happening, and I wrote out all the themes as we introduced them, because we have a lot of themes that we talk about throughout the story. And that helped me get a visual of where this was going, and it helped me see, okay, maybe I need to move this part up, or maybe I need to connect those two themes a little bit better. Maybe I can remove this entirely because we have, 90 minutes to get it in. So that really helped with that. So it was a lot of fun though.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it's so important to make sure that like, if you're going to be putting in that level of effort, there's got to be purpose behind it. If it's a documentary about something that does not matter to you, then you're not, first off, you're going to burn out like crazy. And it's not going to come through in the edit either. Cause it's just like, hey, we got to pump this out. And I think over time I've seen, not just with you, but with every editor that I've worked with, including whenever I edit, if I'm not emotionally invested in some way, shape or form into that project, then it will not turn out.
I mean, for better or worse, it's kind of a thing that if we're artists, like, and I think you guys have probably had some scraps with me over this, is like, Daniel, you're putting too much time into this film. And it's like, oh yeah, it's also because I really care about this project.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of, I think, how it is.
Yeah. No, that's great. And the whole goal in that, and as you spoke about it in the 3-act structure, the whole goal was to bring about some sort of resolution, to bring about some sort of call to action as well. So James, when we're thinking about Storybrand, I know you oversee the start to finish of working with clients, whether they're a nonprofit, a church, or a for-profit. When you sit down and you evaluate the message, what is it that you really look forward to when it comes to seeing it on the screen, and on the pre-production side, what do we have to do to make sure that that's a win?
Oh man, that's some great questions there. So when it comes to looking at a message with a business and an organization, I'm gonna lean a little bit into organizations here because I feel like to your point earlier, Daniel, a lot of these organizations, their purpose is quite impactful on the lives of people, And so on the pre-production side, let's just say communication is very important, right? Yeah. And unity of what the story is. I think that whenever I'm looking at messages that come back, and we ask ourselves the question, is this a good story, and is it going to say something? I get excited when I read a good message because I'm like, this is gonna look great on film, and so the process of pre-production and figuring out how to ask people questions, because a lot of what we do with businesses is helping them. They're not paid actors, they're not professional actors, and we don't want that. We want the passion that's in these people. Like, why did you decide to maybe steer away from? And this is in the organization space. Steer away from maybe some business ideas and steer into this mission that you have. And it's because they are passionate about it. Yeah. I can say the same thing actually about business guys now that I think about it, because they're passionate about whatever they're trying to do in life, and we want to pull that passion out. But you don't want to just throw that up on a wall. Like, you want it to be a beautiful painting. And so that's what the story element is it's taking that passion and putting it into a way. And this is something I wanted to mention actually on this was businesses get so excited when they see their film for the first time.
That's so cool.
I mean, they cry, and it's a great thing, and it unifies your team. So if you're listening to this and you're a business owner and you're thinking, what's a secondary joy, if you will, from film? It's unity for your own team. Like when you hear your message on a film and you send it to your whole team, and everyone's like, "Oh yeah, this is who we are. This is what we do. That's right." Whoa, they get excited about it, and
especially when they get to like act in it and like be
they answer the questions.
Like, hey,
and
it's you.
Exactly. Yeah. And so the storytelling affects your customers and it affects your team. And I think a lot of times business owners are asking the question, how do I keep my team, or how do I encourage my team? And I'll tell you, film is one of the ways that happens. It's a byproduct of good storytelling, is the excitement that comes along. For a better way, like, man, y'all worked so hard on that film, and it is incredible. And I was moved when we finished the project. I was like, this is an incredible film. So I love it. And I love hearing the discussion about it all coming together. So
yeah, that's great. And I mean, I love talking about these stories and about this purpose when it comes to film. And I think a lot of business owners struggle to think, how do I make this work for me? And even with the context of hiring another agency or somebody like that, I mean, they're often just kind of feeling stuck. And so if I can just paint a picture of what that process looks like, I'd love for you to speak into that. And I know this is kind of going a little off script here, but when it comes to the process that a business owner or a nonprofit leader has to go through to get a film made, could you kind of walk them through what that looks like, and really why it's so important to have a guide there in that journey? And if you want like a second to think about it, that's fine too, because I know it's off script.
Well, yeah. What I'd say is that obviously the pre-production calls are the most. They're super crucial, because, like to James's point earlier, like we need to know that they have a message that works, a story that's worth telling, if you will. And if they don't have that, we have to
build it.
We have to either build it, like do a messaging session, or. I mean, that's it. That's kind of our
option. We're not going to do it, or we're going to do a message.
You have a story.
Yeah. I mean, even if they have they could tell us like, hey, we've nailed down Leonardo DiCaprio to film to act in this. It's like, well, great, but what is your story? Because we want to tell good stories. Yeah.
So pre-production is so important. And honestly, if you don't do pre-production right, everything else has the likelihood of not going well. And it also has the likelihood of being more expensive because the post-production takes longer, and production takes longer, and you end up doing things you didn't need to do.
You can make so many mistakes in pre-production.
Yeah,
like it's unbelievable. We've helped so many people make so many films, and like just the setting that you pick is so important. Like if you're a financial advisor, you need a look like that. You can't go out to a park and look like a park ranger. Like that doesn't make any sense.
It's so true.
People want that though. They're like, I want to sit on this bench in this beautiful park. It's like, that's great. But none of your clients care. Like that's not you. Do you meet them in a park in 104-degree weather? Like no one does that,
Why would you do that?
So you have to go through this. Like, okay, who's the people in our people who are passionate about the story? You got to ask those questions. You got to pull these people in. You got to craft good questions, to bring out the right answers to tell the story. I mean, if you have bad questions, they're gonna be like, no, yes, no. Yes, it's like I need to have the story pulled out. Then the setting. There's other technical things like gear and that kind of stuff. You hire a good video team. But when it comes to like, the storytelling element, you've really got to make sure that pre-production call, that you have a message, that the story that's worth telling. Yeah. And a surrounding that's also saying the same thing, I love it.
No, that's so good. And I think that does kind of move into our next question about taking a brand script that is developed. So let's just say there's a business or a nonprofit that's gone through the Storybrand messaging process, and they have a one-liner, they've got a brand script, they have an understanding about the problem that they're uniquely solving for their customers or their church members or what have you. What do you do to bridge that gap between the Storybrand brand script and the visuals? How do you approach that? I mean, is it through do you think about what success looks like and failure looks like? What is that process like?
Yeah, I think to James's point earlier, like it's important to prep, because we need the locations to sort of match what the client is and what they do. Yeah. We need to bring in people who are going to speak to their success. that aren't going to actually end up taking away from what we want the final product to be, because they're hiring us to make a video that produces an ROI for them. So yeah, when I'm like putting together questions and when I'm putting together shot lists and things like that, I'm thinking about, what do we need to, like, who do we need to put on screen? Like, where does it need to be? What is the feeling that we need to evoke through the emotions that they're expressing. Yeah. And so, yeah, prep is super important for that. Yeah. I think just knowing, it's really easy. If we're talking about that 3-act structure, we've got problem, journey, solution, or resolution. Yeah. Usually the middle part, the journey, which is where we talk about the guide, where you talk about your business and how you can solve those problems. Usually that's really easy to shoot. I mean, you get a camera out and you film their sign, you film their office space, you film their team doing work, that kind of stuff. That's easy to do. But then we also have to visualize the problem, and we have to visualize the success. And those can get kind of cheesy depending on what you have to work with. And that's what I try to avoid is kind of avoid the cheesiness. And so you have to visualize that. So we did a film for a financial advisor a few months ago, I don't know. So we talked about how a lot of their customers are losing sleep because they don't have peace of mind about their finances. Yeah. And so we visualized that through, we staged a scene with a couple that, pouring over documents. It's like, how do you express this visually
without looking like one of those like cheesy infomercials with the guy juggling?
Yeah, exactly.
Stuff, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, how do you do it authentically?
That's the conundrum. But yeah, so you want to visualize that, and then you also want to visualize what success looks like. And those are the two sections that are easy to miss. Like, you can go into a shoot and you can film all day at the office and film their setup and film their team and all that, but you can't forget, like, how are you going to visualize? Because you'll have the interviews. If you're doing interviews, you're going to have that Storybrand brand script being brought out of the problem and the journey and the solution. You'll have the audio of it, but how are you going to visualize it? Because you can't just have interview shots here and then at the end.
Yeah, you've got to have some sort of resolution, and success is that.
Right, right. And even something as simple as, like, let's get a shot of, like, for example, a financial advisor company. Like, if we brought in those shots of, the couple that's stressing over their finances, well, let's do it on the flip side. Like, what does that success look like for them? Yeah, smiling, happy, hand in hand, walking down the outside somewhere, or like, I don't know, just showing their transformation from nervous and anxious to a feeling of
peaceful.
So good. Yeah. I'm reminded, as you were talking about the shoot that we did out in Georgia, and I mean, I don't know about you guys listening, but the last thing that I would think is exciting is an IT company. Like, an IT company sounds incredibly boring, yet
ouch.
Sorry, Zach. We love you guys. But the reality is, like, an IT company is not the most engaging thing to want to, like, let me press play and watch this video about an IT company. But when I watched that film that you finished and exported, and I was reviewing it, I was like, I have never been more excited about an IT company because of the success. Because most people, especially business owners and nonprofits, they don't realize the problems that they have. Or maybe they've just internalized them. And for the first time when they're watching that video, someone is vocalizing that problem for them. And all of a sudden they're like, this company gets me. This company gets me. And that's the power of a video that even most copy that goes on a website can't truly communicate, because the business owner is sitting there, if it's a B2B business, the business owner is sitting there explaining the problem that they've been helping their customers overcome for so long, that the consumer of that content is just saying, wow.
Sign me up.
Yes, I want this. I've been looking for this. And frankly, it's not a different service than any other IT company provides, but it's been the first time that it was actually vocalized. And here's the deal. When you stop talking about your customers' problems, they stop paying attention. But when you vocalize the problem that they've had internally floating around in their head, keeping them up at night for so long, you've got them hooked.
And especially if you have a really technical product,
Yeah.
like I've been looking into server options, for our video production needs.
Yeah.
And that can be a very technical thing to look into. So I'm looking on all these websites, and it's the websites that are just like, we do this, 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 and this. And it's all these technical terms that I don't know how to comprehend. It's like, I don't think I'm going to go with you.
Yeah.
But if I go to maybe a big company like Avid, like they've got some good server options. Like their message, I understand because they put it out on their website in a very user-friendly way. Because I'm sure they have directors and producers coming to them all the time saying, hey, I don't understand anything about terabytes or RAID, but I want, like, I need storage for my movie, So,
yeah, exactly.
Especially if you're very technical, you really have to talk about the problems that your customers are having.
I love it. So when we think about just kind of film, and I know we're bouncing around a little bit, but I'm having so much fun with this conversation. When we think about film, we get to, we've already talked about the fact that we get to communicate a problem and a solution for the audience. Whether it's a video for an IT company, a video for a financial advisor, a documentary about a major health crisis going on, or addressing a specific problem that the world already knows exists, but really doesn't know what to do about it. And one of the things that I'm so excited about a project that you're working on, you've been kind of doing on the side as like a after hours project for a long time, and I'm excited about the potential of it turning into something far more than that. Is this narrative project that you've been developing? You've got a script, and that script is addressing a problem that a lot of people know exists, but they don't know what to do about it. Can you tell me a little bit about what you've been doing on the side project?
Yeah, sure. I'm not sure I'll have the best answer that flows into kind of what we're trying to talk about, but so I wrote a short about it's addressing human trafficking, and I think there's been a lot of really good awareness campaigns over the last 10 plus years. Like I first learned about human trafficking back in 2013 at the Passion Conference. They did a big launch of the End It movement. And they talked a lot about how worship and justice are two sides of the same coin. And then they basically educated an entire generation about human trafficking. And so that really stuck with me. And ever since then, there's been a lot of good art and media out there that's shared about the realities of it, and sort of some, and there are a lot of great organizations out there that are educating and telling kind of the lay public how they can get involved or how they can help. And so as far as what I wanted to do with my short was, even though I've done a lot of research and education and all that, like I don't want to like come in from the outside and just address a problem that I really don't know anything about experientially and then just kind of talk into it and preach at it. Definitely don't want to do that. And so the purpose of the film was to kind of talk about it from maybe my perspective as like, what would a normal guy like me do if they found out that their like friend's kid was kidnapped? Like what would I do? And that's basically where the film started, was asking myself that question. So that sort of influences a lot of the decisions of where I wanted the story to go and how I wanted to tell it. So there's not really an in-depth look on like what it looks like, because I do know that it differs from situation to situation as far as I understand, but like I didn't want to talk about that necessarily, and I just wanted to talk about like, I mean, even a question that sometimes like I ponder, like, where is God in a situation like that? And so that this narrative sort of addresses that.
That's really cool. And I love that, because you're utilizing the medium of film to address a mission that we as good agency and good studios are actively fighting against. I mean, we're rolling out a grant program for nonprofits that are actively fighting human trafficking. And that's what we're doing as a business, because we're about more than just money. And we're utilizing this medium of film to help communicate that. And I know that your project is separate, but it's a passion project. And I think it's so important to leverage. And whether you're a business owner or a nonprofit leader or even a filmmaker watching this or listening to this right now, it's so important to make sure that what you're doing is beyond just money. It's beyond just this hey, let's hit our quarterly goals and our numbers and all that kind of stuff. That's good, but all of that fades away. That's going to burn in the end. There's nothing more important than what our calling was, which is to love others and to love God. And so I think when we're talking about an awareness piece like what you're working on, that is in alignment with a mission that we as an organization are in support of, and then we're utilizing the tools at our disposal to help bring that to life, to help the not only the greater awareness of this problem, but putting someone into a position to think, what would I do in this scenario? So it's not just awareness, but it's education as well, in a narrative format, which, as we've been talking about on this specific episode already, film can be utilized to convince someone of something and to inform. And I mean, that's why our culture is so influenced by film in Hollywood. And so anyway, I'm really excited about this project that you're working on, and utilizing all the tools and resources that we have at our disposal, from the 3-act structure to the concept of utilizing Storybrand even in that process. It's huge. It's huge. James, do you want to share any about kind of the missional alignment with a project like this?
Yeah. I mean, the end of our mission statement talks about impacting the world for good, right? And I love the connection with your heart, Daniel, on this passion project that you have, because there's a lot of different people. There's many different businesses and individuals, filmmakers we could work with to push a story. I don't know a single film that doesn't have an agenda somewhere in it, right? And so the question is this something that is good, right? Like we're asking ourselves a question: are we impacting the world for good in the world? And I mean, if I cannot think of a clearer subject than human trafficking when it comes to what is good in this subject and what is bad in this subject. I mean, it's unbelievably clear, right? And there are hundreds of millions of people who are passionate about ending this in our world. I mean, the Sound of Freedom movie is a perfect example of just the awareness campaign, just to begin to touch on the subject of what needs to happen to make that go down. And as an organization, we can spend so much time and resources going after different things. But to Clay's point, if you put every dollar only towards more dollars, it's vain, and so the point is how do you impact people's lives, and help the world become a better place for all people, and the love there. And so I'm very thankful for the mission at Good Agency, because when it comes to supporting even a better way, I mean, people's lives were saved, by that documentary film. And so these are the types of things that we try to align ourselves with. I don't encourage any business owner listening to this, like, make sure on some level you're aligning yourself with passions that you have, not just dollars. And having that mission mindset, even in the business space, and even then, who you donate to, right? And the organizations that we donate to, making sure that you get excited about their mission. There's so many good ones, they're inviting us to galas all the time.
All the time.
And we should show up and we should support them, right? That's the beautiful relationship between all of these nonprofits and business owners, is that beautiful relationship of, I've got a mission and a purpose, and we're trying to make this happen. And honestly, we need funding to be able to make this happen, and people get behind it and make something happen, and it changes people's lives for forever. It never stops. And so equally, as you can tell, I'm also quite excited about the potential as this kind of begins to move forward more and more, because it just aligns with what we're passionate about.
Yeah. I love that. Really, so we've talked a lot, kind of all over the spectrum. I'm sure the audience is wondering, okay, how does all of this tie in together? I mean, talking about a better way, a documentary, talking about helping nonprofits and for-profits achieve their goals. And what we're really just saying is, hey, video is a powerful tool. And it can be used to impact the world for good through helping businesses thrive, through helping major problems in our society come to life and be addressed and come to light, not come to life. And also just realizing that there are some really simple tools that you can utilize to do it successfully. And Storybrand is such a powerful tool for that. And so as we wrap up, I think the one thing we've already emphasized a little bit, but I want everyone to leave with is, if you plan on doing a video, pre-production is the most important part of that. And I'd love it if you have an example of maybe a project that we pre-produced incredibly well. We put the time and the effort, and it's a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of planning that goes into it. And what was the result? And was it a good result? Was it any better than it would have been if we had just kind of winged it? I mean, what was the result of all that?
Yeah, I can think of 2 projects. The first one is that financial advisor company that we just made a film for. And I should say that there are a lot of films that we've made that I think have produced like awesome results. And not necessarily because they would win an award necessarily, but because since we did that prep work on the back end, we were able to kind of see the problems that might arise. I think the old adage is like on a film set, everything that can go wrong will go wrong.
Hey, don't say that. We're on a film set.
Right? Yeah. All right.
Cue the lights breaking right now.
Oh Lord.
Yeah. We still recording?
Yeah, right.
But the fact that we did a lot of that prep work, we talked with the client, they had a lot of legal compliance issues that we needed to work out beforehand. And if we hadn't talked to them about that, we just showed up and we started interviewing. They're they've probably been like, wait, I can't say that, can't say that, can't say that, can't address that question.
Terrible.
That would have been.
We navigated those waters before we press record.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And even something as simple as like, hey, can you send us some pictures of your office where we'll be filming?
Yeah.
And they sent us pictures and I was like, wow, that's a small space. But since I was able to sort of prepare for that helped us, me and my DP really like work with it and not get stunted or not get sidelined by it.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of projects like that, I think, where maybe they won't win like I don't even know what kind of awards they have.
I think they would all win awards. I don't know what you're talking about. We just don't apply for them.
Yeah.
We just don't apply for them.
They're incredible. They're incredible films, incredible results. But just the fact that we did the prep and on the back end helped us to anticipate a lot of problems that could have really sidelined us. Yeah. And then the other project that I was thinking of was a mini doc we did for one of our classical school friends. Yeah. And we were documenting the process that their graduating seniors go through in creating their senior thesis project. The ironic thing about this is that I didn't really do much of the prep work. I think that was mostly you guys.
Yeah. It was a year-long project.
Yeah, it was. We had to think about it in August, and it finished in like the following June.
The entire school year.
So
yeah, I know we did. So we had those 2 shoot days.
Yeah.
We had the one in the fall where we basically just stuck a mic in a classroom and then we filmed the class, which was great. It was really fun. I didn't really know what we were doing at that point. I was just like, I think I joined one of the calls, but I was like, okay, let's film this. And then, but then I did direct the one in the spring, and at that point I knew a little bit more about what we were doing. But I think because y'all had done just such great prep work and the client had done just such great prep work, I mean, they're just so organized and really helpful. And if we're like, hey, we're thinking we need, 3 students to do this. And they're like, I know just the students to film for this. And they're just super flexible with their facility and everything. But I think most importantly, like we had a lot of great things go well for us that day on both of those days. We had really good performances. We had really good,
all with
locations.
People who were not used to being in front of a camera, mind you. Yeah.
And it does help to have, like teachers and, students who are going through the classical process. They're typically very confident, very good on camera, and very good at presenting. So that went well for us for sure. We had great locations, great DP and everything. I think we had a lot going well for us, but I think that the most important part of that was, just to bring it back a little bit, it was the message that they kind of knew exactly, even though I didn't really know what we were doing. They knew the story that they were trying to tell. Exactly. And so, I didn't know what the end result would be, but when I, imported it into our NLE or our editing software and I started working on it, I was like, oh, wow, this is really going to come together because I feel the problem that they're talking about. And ironically, they weren't even talking to the students. The main character is actually not in the film, and that's the parents because they're talking to the parents. The call to action at the end was register your child today or sign up your child for school today. But talking to the parents about, the future of the next generation, that's a pretty big thing to talk about.
Yeah.
And then you show the process that these students are going through in prepping their senior thesis project, and they're talking about some really difficult social issues.
Yeah.
And then at the end, you have their teacher, the senior thesis advisors, talking about like, when I look at the future of the next generation, I'm hopeful because I see my students and I'm excited to come to school every day.
I just got goosebumps.
It's like,
yeah.
I mean, I didn't prep that. Like,
yeah.
I think y'all helped, and the client did a great job prepping that message. And so that's why I think that film turned out really well.
Well, and it truly did turn out well. I mean, it's been featured on national publications because
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Because it is such a clear documentation of what that process is like across not just that school, our client school, but all classical Christian schools across the country and frankly across the world. So anyway, it's very cool to see that get that publicity. And it's just because you clearly articulated it in an easy way for the audience to understand and to understand how it's relevant to them. And so great job on the edit there.
Oh, thank you.
Great job, man.
It was fun.
Well, so now that everyone knows your authority and now that everyone knows why they should know who you are, Daniel, would you mind introducing yourself? Who is Daniel Miller?
Well, I'm not sure everybody needs to know who I am, but I'm Daniel. I work for Clay and James.
Come on, man.
I'm the creative director at Good Agency, Good Studios, and I make videos. I mean, that's basically...
You're a storyteller at heart. That's what you are.
Well, cool. Thanks. No, I will say one thing I really appreciate about working at Good Agency, Good Studios, Good whatever, is that I think when y'all redid the mission statement and rebranded to Good, I think it really resonated with, I think, everything that we do. And to y'all's point earlier about like everything we do in life, I know you think of kind of the deathbed stories people talk about, like the regrets they had and things like that. It's so important to remember that everything we do in life I mean, we have to make a buck. We have to feed our families and all that. But just thinking about what is the impact that I want to make, and Good Agency really does care about impacting the world for good. And I've seen that through how you guys lead the company and do that. And so it's great working with you guys.
Well, it's an honor to have you on the team and to work with you on these amazing projects. So anyway, well, thanks so much for being here, Daniel. And guys, that wraps up this episode of Good Business. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you want to connect with Good Agency and Good Studios, you can shoot Daniel an email, daniel@goodagency.com. He also has a daniel@goodstudios.com. So you want to check him out, you can do both. Follow him on LinkedIn and make sure to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your friends, family, and we look forward to seeing you guys next time on Good Business.